A really important part of brewing a great cup of coffee is having the right tools. Just as you couldn't build a motor without the right tools to pull pistons or bake a great cake without an oven that had good temperature control, you can't make a great cup of coffee without the right tools to do the job. So we're going to walk you through the tools that we use here at Blue Bottle. Part of what's nice about the way we brew is that you can do all of this at home. None of these are prohibitively expensive, except maybe the grinder, but bite the bullet, it's worth it. So we'll talk about each of them and give you a little bit of information there. The first thing you're going to need, of course, always is a delicious bag of coffee. We'll get into some details about this, but you want to make sure that it's freshly roasted and right in that perfect window, and that you've got something high quality that's going to give you a delicious, delicious cup. To grind up that coffee, and again, hopefully that coffee is whole beans so you can get the best out of what you're looking for. To grind it up, you're going to need a high quality grinder. There are two different types of grinders out there. This right here is a Baristas Forte BG. It's a big fancy name, but more or less it's a burr grinder, which is the one category. The other category is a blade grinder. You guys have all seen those little spinny, choppy guys. If you have one of those, my suggestion would be to find the person you like least, wrap it up in a box, ship it off to them, and let them enjoy horrible coffee, and go out and buy yourself a burr grinder, because one of the most important aspects of a grinder is that it produces a consistent size particle. Those blades chop up, you get big chunks, small chunks. As we were talking about, we want to get a percentage of extraction that's really precise, and that's tough when you have various coffee grind sizes. A burr grinder has two sets of burrs, and how close you move them together or pull them apart determines the size of your coffee. A good burr grinder will also have various adjustments. This one you can see has a macro adjustment, so that makes big step changes, and a micro adjustment, so you can really fine tune to get that special point. This one has a few extra bells and whistles. It actually weighs out the amount of coffee that you're grinding. So you say, I want 30 grams, beep, 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 and it grinds until you have 30 grams in there. So it takes out some of the fuss there. But there are definitely cheaper grinders than this that will still do a great job. Just search for burr grinder online. You'll get a few options. It's nice to shop in person because then you can do the weight test. This one's heavy. That's a really good sign. That means it probably has a good motor in there, better casing. Longevity is an important thing. If you buy a cheaper burr grinder, chances are it's only going to last you a year, maybe a year and a half. Next up, we have what's called a pouring kettle. Now you can heat up water any old way and splash it in there. The control with which you do it is what's really going to differentiate between getting an okay cup and a great cup. So we have two different ones here. They both have the key defining aspect of this skinny neck that starts at the base of the kettle. That's what makes this a pouring kettle, because that very skinny neck allows you to get a slow stream that you can have a very controlled pour with. There's tons of different pouring kettles out there. I actually tend to like the electric ones at home. They're really easy. A lot of the nice pouring kettles get a little beat up if you put them on a range stove, electric or gas. So if you do have one of these, I would recommend heating your water in a proper tea kettle and then adding it to this for the brewing process. But anything with this style of spout is probably going to be good enough to give you the type of pouring control that you need. Next, this is a digital scale. This is, a lot of people will say, digital scale, I don't know, I don't want to get that crazy into it. This is one of the most helpful tools that you can get in making a great cup of coffee, because it lets you be really accurate. If you're not using a digital scale, then you're doing everything basically by eye. So imagine if I gave you a recipe and I said, hey, go bake this cake. You know, you got tablespoon of butter, you've got blah, blah, all the different ingredients, but you don't necessarily have the exact measurements. You can use volumetric measurements, but it gets a little bit trickier, as you'll see when we walk through the brewing process. A good digital scale should have a resolution of at least 1 gram. So It has 1 gram increments. Fancy ones will get down to 1/10 of a gram. And it should have a capacity of at least 1,000 grams, preferably 2,000 grams. So that means the roof as to how much it can weigh. This one also includes a timer, and it also hooks up to an app that you can get for an iPhone or an iPad called Brewmaster that lets you do a bunch of fancy things. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So digital scale, really crucial thing. Timer, if you don't have a timer on digital scale, having just some simple little kitchen digital timer is helpful, or any timer at all, to sync up what you're doing. We talked about this earlier, a refractometer. Now this is like, if you have this in your kitchen, you're going a little overboard. I respect you for it, and you'll have fun with it, but you don't really need this. This is for people that want to just have a little too much fun. Brewing method. The brewing method that you pick is crucial in determining the flavor profile of the cup you're going to get. Now there's a couple ways that we differentiate them. There are pour-over methods, so both the Chemex here and the Bonmac would be pour-over, so that simply means you pour water over them to brew your cup of coffee. And then there are steeping methods, like the French press, and to an extent the AeroPress over here, where you add the water to the coffee and you let it sit for a while. Those are 2 broad families of different types of brewers that you'll encounter. I honestly don't think that you get dramatically different cups from them based on steeping or pour over. I think the bigger differentiator is whether or not you have a metal filter like you do with a French press, or a fiber filter like you will for the Bonmac or the Chemex. Because that's going to determine how much sediment, how many oils get through into the cup. Out of these brew methods, the French press is a very common one that you're going to see. Same with the Chemex. AeroPress got a little popularity. That's kind of a fun guy that you can read tons about online on your own. We at Blue Bottle love the Bonmac. It produces a really nice, clean, clear cup that highlights those fantastic characteristics of the coffee that we know and love. In terms of filter, we use the Bonmac filters. These are actually really interesting in that they're made out of bamboo. So it's not like a lot of your traditional paper filters you see in the store, but if you can't find these because they're a little tough to get a hold of, you can go to the store and get number 2 Melita filters. They typically have those. You could use number 4s in here as well. They're just going to be a little big and floppy. The thing to think about is that a lot of filters in the grocery store you'll see are either bleached white or natural brown. Go for the bleached white ones every time. Those natural brown filters tend to have a very cardboardy, papery taste that's hard to get rid of. I know natural sounds like a great thing when you're drinking it, but in this case, opt for drinking bleach. Last but not least, there are a couple different apps that you can get that help you brew a better cup of coffee. This one's called Brewmaster. It lets you create a brew profile. That's kind of a fun, fancy thing. There's one that pairs up with the VST that's called Coffee Tools, and that lets you dig really far into that science side of things. But more or less, these are the tools that we have that we use to brew an amazing cup of coffee.